Guardian Meng noticed the fact that he had heard about the hero being beaten up recently. Yang Kai's face darkens at these words. He doesn't understand the mood of the other person, so he turns around and starts moving towards the exit. In the doorway, he hears the voice of an old man, who asks the young man not to leave and talk to him. The hero also notes that they have nothing more to talk about. In Yang Kai's opinion, the old man was even glad to be defeated. An experienced man advises the young man to return home, because he believes that the Sky Pavilion is not the right place for him. Guardian Meng is worried about the other person, because if his trial is prolonged, then one day he may lose his life. These words make the hero stop. He stands for a few seconds, thinking about the other person's words and waiting for some continuation. But when he gets nothing more, he declares that he has no place to go back to. Yang Kai then leaves the room. Chapter 1-13. Keeper Meng laughs after the hero leaves. He wonders how long the essence tempering pill will last in this old man's possession. Then the mentor notices that it came to him to lie a little to help the guy. However, he thinks that the interlocutor still would not believe him. Events are transferred to the village of Black Plum. As Yang Kai walks down the street, where there is a huge number of residents, he remembers that every time he visited this village, he felt a little anxious and unpleasant, but today these feelings are not present. The hero seriously thinks about what this might be related to. He assumes that the golden skeleton has something to do with it. Passing by a dark alley, the guy notices that several people are communicating in it. One of them is wearing the shape of a sky pavilion. One of the guys notices Yang Kai. He has black hair, a scar on his forehead, and a small cut under his right eye. Seeing the witness, the brunette is angry, but the hero manages to leave before something happens. Approaching the designated place, the hero thinks about whether his vision failed, because among the crowd he saw a brother student. After that, he realizes that it's quite normal, because Black Plum Village is located near the Sky Pavilion, so it's normal to see a couple of disciples here. Opening the door, he calls out to his aunt. A girl comes out to him, who asks if the guy has come for rice again. Yang Kai confirms this by asking for one bag. Then the saleswoman notices the fact that the hero buys a bag of rice only once a month, which makes her have a logical question about whether this is exactly enough for the guy. Yang Kai says that one bag of rice for a month is more than enough for him. My aunt points out that he is a real liar, because just by looking at his emaciated body, you can understand that he is not eating enough. The brunette also emphasizes that he also hunts in the mountains nearby to feed himself. After listening to the conversation between the wife and the buyer, the merchant declares that the woman can take that old rice from the warehouse and give it to this young man. A representative of the fair sex supports this decision. The hero feels uncomfortable about this, so he asks them to stop and not do it, claiming that they don't have to do it at all. My aunt says that they can't sell these bags because the insects chewed through them. In addition, she adds that her husband said that getting rid of insects is much more important than a couple of bags of rice. The woman asks the guy to wait on the spot while she goes to get rice. The hero, meanwhile, talks to himself about this situation. It turns out that every time he buys rice, the boss and his wife constantly find different excuses to give him much more rice. In fact, there is nothing wrong with rice. It's not old or anything. Yang Kai thanks Auntie for this. Chapter 1-14. While the woman goes to get rice, the hero is left alone with the boss. The man starts the conversation by noticing that the guy is lonely and that he is having a hard time right now, so he decides to give him a helping hand at such a moment. It says that if the guy is hungry, then let him come to them. The merchant confirms that they do not have much, but there is always rice. Yang Kai can only accept such help with bowed head, because he doesn't know how to respond to such kindness. At the same time, a couple of young men approach the store. One of them is supporting the other by the shoulder. They are met by a young guy who is dressed the same as the boss. He specifies what the gentleman would like to buy. Those, in turn, demand that he get out of the way. One of the visitors hits a young boy with his leg. He falls to the floor, clutching his bruised side, where the blow landed. The boss immediately flies up from his seat, trying to figure out what happened here. Yang Kai is currently lifting the injured person off the floor, trying to somehow help him. The hero looks up and recognizes the guys. He had seen them in the alley he passed on his way to this place. The guy with the scar on his head loudly asks who is the boss here. The man replies that he is the owner. Then the brunette lashes out at him with accusations. According to him, he sold poisoned rice, which caused even his comrade, being strong and robust, to very simply become so weak after a bowl of his rice. The guest claims that the owner of the establishment sells poisoned rice for profit. After such a statement, the owner begins to strain a little, assuring that this is simply impossible. Then the guy with the scar on his forehead continues to push, claiming that his friend bought some rice from him in the morning and dined on it, after which he became so weak that the guy himself did not have time to eat his portion. The man begins to worry a lot, so he interrupts the interlocutor, saying that all this is some kind of misunderstanding. Then the visitor claims that the old man is blatantly lying, because if not for his rice, then everything would be fine with his brother now. Yang Kai gets up from his seat because the boy who was hit by the guest's blow has already come to his senses. He approaches the two guys, about to say something to them, but the owner's hand stops him. The old man explains that even if he suffers a loss, he must avoid trouble. These words startle the hero, but the man returns to the question of the guests. He notices that he can't do anything to help the guy with his brother's illness. These words sting the young man with the scar on his forehead, but the owner keeps talking. The man notes that there is absolutely nothing he can do here other than just look at his brother, so he suggests calling a doctor for the guy. He also says that if young people have problems with money, he will be able to pay for treatment himself. This annoys the brunette, for whom such words sound as if the owner wants to make them look like scammers. The guy claims that they are decent people who always follow the path of good, but the owner sold them poisoned rice, so they have no other choice. The hero notices to himself that he does not see any real decency in the guy opposite. After listening to the words of the victims of poisoned rice, the owner ceases to understand at all what these people want from him, so he rushes to find out about it. At this time, a crowd of people gathers on the street, which warms the ears. A young man dressed in the clothes of a disciple of the Heavenly Pavilion also enters the room. That's when Yang Kai realizes that he's already seen these guys in that alley. Chapter 1-15. A new person wearing the clothes of a disciple of the Heavenly Pavilion enters the room. He assesses the condition of the victim, and then goes to the owner of the establishment. The hero also realizes that all these guys are familiar with each other, so he is sure that they are up to something. The companions exchange glances, after which the student approaches the owner. A dark-haired man with a scar under his eye declares that the guest should not pretend to be a hero. The disciple of the Heavenly Pavilion notices that the guy's brother is very weak, so he rushes to find out if this poison is really so strong. The victim's brother says that all this is obvious. In addition, according to him, they are already spending this precious time on treatment in order to bring the old man to clean water. After that, the chatterbox focuses on the fact that if this is not done, then other people may suffer. Yang Kai, meanwhile, takes a moment to talk to the owner. He asks if Uncle He has offended any of them before. The man nervously replies that he doesn't. The hero then begins to speculate that his rice shop has begun to interfere with someone. The interlocutor does not quite understand who can interfere with such a small shop. After hearing a rather strange answer, Yang Kai tries to understand what the visitors are up to, arranging such a theatrical performance. Here, the disciple of the Heavenly Pavilion sneers, then abruptly strikes at the patient, warning him of the danger in advance. At the last moment, the poisoned one evades the guy's attack, breaking the distance with a jump. Then the disciple of the Heavenly Pavilion is surprised that, despite the poison, the guy very easily dodged his attack. One man in the crowd shouts that he is a crook who tried to frame them. The second one notices that the disciple of the Heavenly Pavilion has very impressive martial arts. Meanwhile, Yang Kai is seriously considering the situation. The heroic actions of the disciple brother, who defends the honor of the weak, are very correct, but the hero has doubts about the purity of his intentions because he saw him in that alley. She wonders what the show is all about. At the same time, the guy with the scar on his forehead declares that the disciple of the Heavenly Pavilion should not pry into other people's affairs. A guy who wants to look like a hero of the people introduces himself. His name is Sumu, and he is a disciple of the Heavenly Pavilion, as expected. The most grumpy guy notices that they admit defeat because they can't compete with the Sky Pavilion, but he claims that he remembered the other person's name, so one day they will meet again. At the same time, the hero almost laughs, amazed at this masterpiece game, because these actors do not even have an Oscar. Sumu demands that the deceivers get out of his sight. A couple of brothers are about to leave the store together. The hero also realizes that if you let them leave like this, then their plan will be successfully completed. Yang Kai suggests that the plan is most likely to get Sumu to start respecting the deceived people. The hero simply cannot allow this, so he calls on the two brothers to stop because they did not even apologize to this shop. He also points out that if they don't teach them a lesson now, they might do the same thing next time, just like at Liu Shi's clothing store or his Yang's grocery store. Chapter 1-16. The crowd supports Yang Kai's thoughts. One of them approves that they shouldn't just let these scoundrels go. Another clings to the second part of the hero's monologue, saying that if they let them go, then one day two brothers may come to his store, disgracing their reputation. A couple of guys freeze in place, not knowing what to do. Sumu, on the other hand, becomes angry as he realizes that he is losing control of the situation. At the same time, the hero approaches the guy. He notices that his brother said earlier that all good deeds should be carried out to the end, so Yang Kai suggests that they detain these two together. Obviously, this development does not suit the brazen deceiver, so he asks his brother to wait. The hero says that he is also a disciple of the Heavenly Pavilion and stayed in it for almost 3 years. Mentally, the interlocutor is surprised that the dumbass is standing in front of him. Yang Kai also emphasizes that it is not worth wasting time, and being brave and courageous is his way in life. So he once again suggests that his brother arrest 2 scoundrels and help Mr. He restore justice. This will raise the prestige of the village. The crowd approves of such a decision, supporting the 2 Heavenly Pavilion disciples in doing so. Sumu looks at his companions with an apologetic look. The hero, meanwhile, is smiling behind his back. After waiting for a while, young Kai still steps forward, placing his hand on his comrade's shoulder and calling him to action with his words. Mentally, the deceiver understands that this was not part of the plan. His plans. He winks at his companions, trying to calm them down. He makes a mental note that one way or another, he must help them escape when the opportunity arises. The 2 brothers are very worried, and the hero carefully observes the actions of the brother student. Then the owner of the restaurant, Reese, decides to help the guys. He calls out to the crowd, stating that the disciples of the Heavenly Pavilion need help with such a matter. The people were blown up from their seats. They surrounded the 2 brothers from all sides, preventing them from getting out. The crowd turned on the 2 guys, starting a small scuffle. The deceiver, who wanted to put himself in a better light in front of the deceived people, was lost, frozen in place, and did not know what to do. When the residents calmed down, 2 brothers were left lying beaten on the road. One of them began to stretch out his hand in the direction of his friend, literally begging him for help. Sumu also threatened that he wouldn't allow anyone to call him by his first name. Chapter 1-17. A couple of brothers were sprawled on the floor, unable to move. The hero still decided to ask them how many more evil things they had done before. At the same time, young Kai refers to them as despicable. One of the crowd remarked that the 2 men were a disgrace to their village. The hero also clung to these words, offering to execute the guys for being a thorn in this village. He immediately asks if anyone has any objections. These words silence everyone present. No one is in a hurry to say anything on this issue. Because of this, a deathly silence has hung. One of the beaten scammers looks up at Sumu, who is still recovering afterward. He thinks the boys have had enough. Young Kai clings to his brother's words. He highlights the important fact that if their prank today had been successful, this shop would probably have closed down, because without income, Uncle He's family would not have been able to survive. The hero notes that they would have starved to death. It is because of this that Brunet elaborates on how they might not make these scammers pay the price. Sumu claims that there is some truth in his brother's words, but killing people like this is somehow wrong. At the same time, the main fraudster swears to himself, because they are tied hand and foot. Young Kai, on the other hand, continues to gently push the other person. He argues that they should both stick to the path of justice and live by helping others. After that, the hero asks if Sumu is not able to end the life of this garbage. Then he immediately corrects himself, asking if there's any reason why his brother doesn't want to kill them. The main scammer tries to keep his face to the very end, so he answers the question with a question, asking the interlocutor if he thinks that he knows something. At this time, the hero is approached by the owner of the institution, who has doubts about such radical measures, which he is in a hurry to express. After listening to Uncle He, the guy returns his gaze to his brother, wanting to finish him off completely. Young Kai says that he thought that his brother was one of those who stands for the weak, but in this case, he does not understand why he cannot do it, because in this way he will help many people. Sumu laughs at this, noticing the fact that the other person thinks he's afraid of it. He begins to defend himself, claiming that he has already seen a life taken many times. After listening to the confident words of the interlocutor, Yang Kang clarifies what then he is waiting for. A disciple of the Heavenly Pavilion becomes despondent, realizing that he dug his own grave out of pride. Just then, one of the beaten guys gets up from his seat on shaky legs. 2 brothers claim that Sumu is a liar. They say that he was the one who forced him and his brother to come here and start a fight, so that they could help get rid of them, thereby gaining a good reputation. Second brother is supportive, claiming that Sumu's words aren't worth a penny. Sumu says it's all nonsense. This surprises his fellow officers. The guy who pretended to be poisoned by the rice of a local grocery store loudly and clearly tells the whole neighborhood that they were the victim of this guy from Heavenly, the Pavilion. He forced them to do it because he thought that the daughter of the boss of this shop would treat him better. Chapter 1-18. Ian can't help but realize that there was no point in lying to the kid, and he knows they know each other. Sumu insists that all this is nonsense to blacken his name. The beaten boy claims that he did not say anything bad, because although the 2 brothers, do not differ much in knowledge, but even they were in doubt about this plan. The beaten guy continues to insist that everyone around him should know the truth that he and his brother are only victims of his plans. He notes that their families are starving, so they were looking for any ways to earn money, and then Sumu appeared, offering to run an errand. The hero decided to clarify that how much he offered the brothers for such an assignment. Beaten claims that their payment would have been 50 taels in silver. These words startle young Kai, who believes that this is quite a lot of money. Uncle He is very angry at this, realizing that the beaten ones probably don't lie. He calls Sumu a scoundrel for trying to get hold of his daughter. The man notes that he has no right to do anything to him because he is from the Heavenly Pavilion. However, in the place of his parents, he would be very ashamed. The man in the crowd is astonished that someone from the Sky Pavilion would be capable of such meanness. The girl standing next to him supports these words, noting that he is not a hero at all. Sumu knows that he has to leave because his plan has gone downhill. His reputation was ruined, and all because of this brat. Because of this, the guy decides to approach the hero to find out his name. Yongkai asks him to guess. This pisses off Sumu, who was already on edge before. He says that the other person should not try to hide the name, because he will find out anyway, because he has been in the pavilion for almost 3 years. The guy notes that on the upcoming test of students, his brother will have a very hard time, because he clearly remembered his face. After making such a furious speech, Sumu hurries to leave the village. He pushes people aside in his path. The hero at this time notices that the two brothers are already gone. Uncle He also rushes to thank the guy for his help, noting that he helped him out a lot today. But the fact that this guy will now have problems does not go away from the experienced eye. Yongkai also asks not to worry about him, claiming that Sumu is a bad person. Even if he remembers him, it's not a bit scary. Then the owner of this shop puts his hand on the guy's shoulder, saying that he should still be careful, because he will not be able to find a place for himself if something happens to the interlocutor because of him. The hero is forced to agree, promising that he will be more careful in the future. He picks up a bag of rice as he leaves the store. Uncle He wishes him a safe journey, and the boy thanks him again for the rice, asking him not to worry about it. When Yongkai returned to his small shed, he left the bag of rice at the entrance, noting that now he didn't have to worry about food for the next month. He wiped the beads of sweat from his forehead, then mentally noted that he expected this Sumu to be waiting for him on the way here. It came as a surprise to him that this did not happen. Then the guy realizes that according to the rules of the Sky Pavilion, killing without a particularly important reason, as well as injuring, is prohibited. This means that if Sumu still dared to injure him on the way home, then he would be severely punished. Even if it didn't happen right now, Yongkai is completely confident that Sumu will challenge him in the future. He realizes that he does not know what stage of body hardening the guy is currently in, so the hero decides to immediately start training. Otherwise, at best, he will be evicted. Chapter 1-19. The hero approaches the training dummy, starting to hone his punches. After a while, he takes a short break, noting the fact that as soon as he got this golden skeleton, his body started to ache a lot. He wonders if he should start training half an hour before dawn. He has practice every morning for 1 hour, but then what to do with the rest of the time? This is a question that worries Yongkai, who thinks that it might be better to leave time for sleep. After finishing his workout, the guy goes to the bath. Having done all the water treatments, he declares that a bath in the morning is perfectly relaxing. He dries himself off and lies down on a kind of bed, noting that a double result from half the effort is, of course, good, but the return is very serious, so do not overexert your body. Then he remembers the book and calls it back to the real world. Opening the book to the required page, he remembers all the stages of body hardening. The first stage of the golden body tempering technique is to build a foundation, or source. The second stage is a thorough hardening of the body, where the very basics are practiced, but the third stage. At these words, a golden pot appears from the book. The hero takes it with one hand, starting to study it carefully. It turns out that according to what I read in the book, this vessel will help him in practice. This vessel transforms rare herbs into enhancing incense. Yongkai understands that he should look for the necessary components for this. In addition, for a full-fledged effect, it is necessary to use only those herbs that will be useful at this stage of body hardening. At the current stage of development, a shamrock flower or dead grass will suit the hero. The value of both is small, so he can afford it, although the deadling grass has some toxic substances in it. This is not critical for practitioners, because even an ordinary person can get sick only after a few years. Yongkai, on the other hand, has doubts about whether these two plants will help him improve his body. Of course, they are available in the contribution hall now, but Keeper Meng will not allow them to be taken away just like that. The price is low, but the guy doesn't have enough contribution points right now, and he was saving up for something more valuable. Yongkai decides that he has no choice but to rely on his luck in the mountains. Fortunately for him, the Sky Pavilion is located near the mountain range, so he can look for herbs there. The hero decides that he will do this tomorrow, and today he needs to sleep, so he lies down in a kind of bed, covering himself with a blanket. At dawn, Yongkai practices body tempering, and then sends him to the contribution hall, where he works tirelessly. The work always pays off, because Keeper Meng lends him books where medicinal herbs are presented. This time was no exception. The hero received another book, which contains many medicinal herbs. It includes not only their list and description, but also their approximate location. At noon, Yongkai took a circuitous route to obtain a document allowing him to take 3 days off from the sect, then packed up everything he needed and set off. Approaching the mountain range, the guy noted the fact that the location of these mountains is quite convenient. Looking down, the hero notices the grass. He is happy that he found Li Jai, although he doesn't deny the fact that collecting it with his bare hands is a bit problematic. After collecting one of the types of herbs, the guy goes further into the mountains. Here on the road he notices a small bush of 3 herbs. It's still not very visible from afar, but he assumes it's dead grass. Coming even closer, the hero takes out a book that has an image of this herb and begins to compare them. After a while, he realizes that they are very similar, so most likely he was lucky. He takes out a tool to gently pull the grass out of the ground. Yongkai notices that the sun is already sinking below the horizon, so it makes sense to arrange a pass for the night. He sits down under a tree, starting to sash a small piece of rice. The hero decides that after he eats, he will climb a tree and sleep. The night passes quickly and imperceptibly. There comes an earlier morning, on which the hero conducts a training session. After that, he takes out another piece of rice and eats it right on the go. He decides to go back to looking for herbs. Evening comes, and the hero's stomach requires additional food. Yongkai involuntarily grabs onto it, perfectly understanding the essence of the problem. He remembers that he originally expected to hunt, but he didn't see a single rabbit all day. In his mind's eye, he thinks he should have made more rice balls. The hero thinks about where to find food, not forgetting that the village is far enough away. Then he notices that smoke is coming from a small fishing line nearby. The guy decides to check out the source of the fire. In his mind's eye, he emphasizes the fact that whoever built a fire in the middle of the mountains must be either fearless or just plain stupid. As he gets closer, he can actually see the flames that are lighting up the area brightly, releasing carbon monoxide into the air. He immediately decides to ask who's here. Chapter 1:20. After these words, 2 people immediately point their bows at the hero. The guy is in a hurry to justify himself, saying that everything is in order and he just walked around and collected herbs. Hearing this, the man lowers his bow. His young comrade does not lose his vigilance until the very end, holding the uninvited guest at gunpoint. The man claims that he thought the fire attracted a wild animal, so it was a false alarm. He puts a hand on his partner's shoulder, trying to calm him down. Yongkai apologizes for bothering me. The man offers to discuss everything around the campfire, because the wind in the mountains is very cold. The hero has no reason to refuse, so he sits down next to the travelers by the fire. The eldest says that his name is Zhang Shan, and that he comes from a small village at the foot of the mountains, and here they go to hunt, thereby providing food for the whole village. The hero involuntarily looks at the young boy next to him, as if asking a silent question. Zhang also says that you should not be so lenient with this boy, because he is already an avid hunter, which will soon give him a head start. The man is in a hurry to find out who he met, where he came from and where he is going. Yongkai unhesitatingly reveals that he is a disciple of the Heavenly Pavilion, and that he is here in search of herbs. These words surprise Zhang Shan, who points out that the boy also wants to start practicing there one day. In addition, the boy greatly admires the disciples of the Heavenly Pavilion. The hero puts his hand on the boy's head, declaring that even if he is not very talented, then strength and labor will grind everything out. The boy laughs at this, and then passes the boy a piece of bread. Yongkai initially refuses, noting that food is worth its weight in gold in the mountains, and the interlocutors need to take care of themselves. The man notices that the guy has not eaten anything for a long time, so he should not refuse. Then the hero accepts the food, thanking the interlocutors for it. After eating, the trio goes to bed. Yongkai gets up first in the morning. The fire is already out, and the hunters are still asleep. He also notes that even separately, herbs have an excellent therapeutic effect. She leaves some herbs for the 2 travelers, noting that even if it's not much, he should somehow thank them. After moving a little away from the camp, the hero takes a fighting stance, intending to start practicing body tempering. Then she notices that something strange is happening. He feels that a strange warm feeling is spreading all over his body, and the meridians are filled with something.